The funny part about this is, let's use the tax code, but let's use the convention, let's use the collective bargaining ability to tax. There's revenue sharing in professional sports. In almost every professional sport, rich franchises give money back to poorer ones, the less high earning ones. In football, it's split up equally 32 ways, which is part of why the Major League, or the NFL's model of revenue is so strong, is that there are no weak franchises, there are no bad franchises, everybody is awash in money, primarily to the $24 billion television contract. Here's my plan. The one common piece of ground that seems to designate who commits crimes and who doesn't in sports is whether they have a college degree. I couldn't find any other piece of data that commonly linked them. Were they linemen? Were they running backs? Were they play a different position? Nothing. Were they white? Were they nope. But of 20 of the 21 that I could find that had a degree, that had no degree and were arrested in that prior year, all but one. The funny part, what the one was, he had a degree from Texas A&M in agriculture, and what was he arrested for? Marijuana. It was too funny to pass up. So here's the fun part. Why not create a new culture in the locker room, a culture that sends players back to school to finish their degree? And here was my plan. The rookie in the NFL makes $275,000 a year. Next year it'll be $300,000. If the player has his degree, he gets his full amount. If the player doesn't have his degree, $100,000 is levied on that, up to $1 million. So he can only make he makes $100,000 less. What do you do with the $100,000 you just took from him? Give it to other players in the league that have their degree as an adjustment. Now there's precedent for this. The NFL Players Union did this a couple of years ago, redefining playtime. So they were concerned rookies were making too much money. And they basically said they would give money from a pool to players who were on the field more. So you can make up to like $75,000 or $80,000 a year more if you play a lot of plays. And I had one of the first players to do that, and I used it as part of a Nike negotiation I did, that we used actually the number of plays that this player was in the field to try to get a couple $1,000s more from Nike. And we're not talking about like a lot of money from Nike, just a little bit more. Say this player's on the field the most for the Raiders, and they went to the Super Bowl. So use that this way. Well, here, use the same kind of adjustment, just readjust it. So could you imagine if you're the starter, and the guy behind you is making the $100,000 you're giving to him? It could make you mad. How do you fix the problem? The minute you get your degree, the adjustment ceases. And at $1 million, make it $250,000 a million. So you would encourage players in the off season not to go to Las Vegas and make it rain like Pac-Man Jones did, whatever that means. You would encourage them to at least get back in school. And I'm not saying this is going to be a perfect system, because I'm sure Drew Rosenhaus, the agent, will have his own university tomorrow under this system. But I'm saying that this is a way to change the culture and bring athletes back into the possibility of being role models. To bring the culture back to one that's at least educationally focused. Because you know what a pro athlete is? Ultimately, at the end of the day, they're a highly paid young employee. And they make a lot of money, but they are a company that doesn't really put much money back into educating them and creating the culture that helps them develop. And I think penalizing them, making it a little bit harder, will get players to come back and focus on that. It will also give teams a little bit of a salary cap exemption for having a larger percentage of college players. So guess what you have? You're encouraging teams to hire the better employee. Because the player who doesn't get arrested, ultimately, is the better employee, right? Beyond your first 11 who play for physical purposes. You're going to choose the player who doesn't embarrass the team, who doesn't embarrass the sponsor, who doesn't cause problems. And they do that now. I often tell my clients, if you're going to be the 53rd man on the roster, you better be a good guy. If you're the first man on the roster, they got to live with you. Then it's their problem. But that's exactly the situation. And I think that's my idea for helping fix sports and do it, particularly in football where it's relevant, where every other player has their degree. Do it through a degree tax readjustment. And once you're out of that, once you get through that system, then you get your money back. You don't get your money back, but you come back up to your full salary. So, problems in this, the first pitfall is what happens if I don't go to college or I wasn't suited for college? I'll give you back the Roger Staubach exemption. If you serve 2 years in active duty military service or reserve service, I'll give it back to you then. You can qualify that way. You can say, hey, Bob, I really didn't do that. I just want to be a player. Volunteer firefighting and not getting arrested. Oh, there's one other caveat. You can't get arrested during this period. You go down to the lower event if you get arrested, no matter how many degrees you have. But essentially what you're doing is it would be a cultural change in the locker room. It isn't making players better, but it's recognizing that we have a corporate culture. We're a corporation just like everybody else. I will dare say that all of you will go to law firms and you will find that everybody who's a lawyer there went to law school and passed the bar. So I don't think it's unheard of that this would be something that exists in the real America that we should think about doing. And it is seemingly the one piece of common ground. So this is my proposal for you to think about. You can kind of think about it. You can email me and tell me I'm crazy. You can tell me I'm nuts. But I am so thankful that you brought me here. I am so pleased to be an alumnus of Cumberland.